Friends, welcome back to another episode of the Strong Life Podcast. I'm here with my friend, Kurt Hester, Louisiana Tech strength and conditioning coach. Man, long history. This guy's got some amazing history, some awesome stories. I'm going right to it. This book is awesome. He's got his book, Rants of a Strength and Conditioning Madman. And I actually didn't think that the book was going to get so much into life and career stuff. It's really been one of my favorites. Not just saying that. I love it. I recommend it a lot. And we're going to crush it. We talk about training. We talk about life. We talk about business. We just let it flow here, Kurt. You know what I'm saying, bro?
Hey, brother, you know, I'm all in. Whatever it takes, man. We talk about anything you want to talk about.
Okay. So
unabashed and unashamed.
I love it. And your book has so much truth. It's so damn refreshing, you know, and I just wish there was video footage of the whole alligator thing, but we'll get to that. I mean, I talk about it all the time. I tell people about it. It's because I wish I was there. So for people who don't know, we will get into that story shortly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, if we had video, I'd be in prison.
Well, here's the good news. I don't talk about politics rarely, but if you are in prison, you'd be getting released now because of COVID. But if you own a gym, you could get arrested. So this is just like you would be out. But then if you opened your own gym, you'd be back in prison. Yes. Yeah. So Kurt, you've got quite a history. You're in your early 50s, even though like when I say that,
I'm in my late 50s.
You're in your late,
I just turned 57.
Dude, you look like a kid. It just blows my mind, Kurt. It blows my mind.
It's being very immature at an older age.
Well, seeing how young you look, it's to me is such a testament to strength being the fountain of youth. And, I see guys my age, I'm 45 in a few weeks, and I see guys younger than me who I'm very careful to say, oh, how old are you? And then they're younger than me, but they look 10 years older. And it's like, if you're not fit and if you're just, sitting on the couch, being the couch, putting away the booze, I didn't realize how much it ages you until I look at somebody like yourself. It's crazy, man.
Well, growing up in the field, I would see coaches, all the coaches were older than me. I was a young coach and they didn't train. They were strength coaches, but most of them never trained and they were always out of shape. They were either out of shape, overweight, and, their excuse was that, I trained, all the way through college and, I don't need to train anymore. I can just teach. And I've always had that mindset that if you can't do, you can't teach. It's just really hard. So, and the fact that I'm around most of my life between 12-year-old athletes and 40-year-old athletes. So I've always been around, and mostly younger athletes between 16 and 20, 21, really, like kind of like yourself. So when you're around, that's what you're around pretty much 24 hours a day. You tend to have a younger outlook on life because you're still kind of seeing through their eyes and you still remember how you were at that point in time in your life. And, so I think that just as much as I've never stopped training has kept me young. If I would be in the same, I think the same way, I think you probably think the same yourself, being around these young guys and they're, and most athletes, male or female at between 12 and 21 are pretty funny. I mean, they're comical, it's like, and so, your day is, it's work and we do spend crazy hours, but that's why we love what we do. Cause it's fun to be around them. You're changing their life. Then they're changing our lives. I mean, I've learned more from the athletes I've trained probably than they've learned from me, over the years through different, stages of my life. And the fact that, my friends would always say, man, Kurt, I can't do what I used to do. And I always would say, because you quit doing what you used to do. Right. And I've never quit doing what I used to do. I've always just done it. Yeah. And we kind of grew up. I was like 10 years ahead of you. So your life, like you going to those hardcore gyms, in New York and all, I was doing that. You were in 1990. I was 1980.
Right. So Kurt, you grew up in Louisiana, correct?
it grew up way south. I'm talking on the Gulf, like one step, you're in Cuba type Louisiana.
Wow.
I mean, on the Gulf, way in South Louisiana. My grandparents were Cajun French, didn't speak a whole lot of English. Mom speaks French. I'm talking about like real Louisiana,
like that,
straight.
like that TV show. The
Well,
guys who
like
have the
the swamp people.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, most of where they're catching alligators and trapping them, I've hunted and fished that my whole life. Like pretty much every different place they've gone, I could sit at that TV show and go, I've hunted there, I've fished there, So yeah, pretty much that's where I grew up.
Those guys are 40 years too late with the TV show.
Yeah, no doubt. I should have started that reality show a long time ago, but so. Well, I grew up down there, and my brothers were welders. One of my brothers was a welder in a shipyard, and when they would cut down barges, like they would just chop up barges, scrap metal, and be in a shipyard. And so I would draw up equipment. And
how old were you when you were
probably,
drawing up equipment?
Like 13, 14.
Why were you drawing up equipment? Were you reading Strength and Health magazine?
What got you into that? I didn't even know. I'm so far down the bayou. I had no idea what about Muscle and Fitness or Flex or any of those magazines. I bought at 12 years old with birthday. You get birthday money from your grandparents and all that. I think I had like $20. And
you get $5.
Yeah. And so we had a little bitty Sears, like a little standalone Sears and Roebuck. This is like 1975.
Wow.
And I bought one of those plastic 110 cement filled weight sets.
Yep.
And it had the workout in it. And it was, a straight front press, standing front press.
Yes.
Bent over row, back squat, high pull.
Yeah.
And curls. That was the whole workout.
Solid program.
Yeah. It was just in a little pamphlet.
Yeah.
And so I would do that like kind of unmercifully. I didn't know what I was doing, but I would just do a million sets and reps. Then I built a bench just out of plywood. It was rough. It was out of plywood and 2x4s. And I built it too wide at first. And I had to cut it down. And then I cut off 2 4x4s, dug a hole, stuck them in the ground to where I could jump up and do dips. Just put my palms on it and do dips. Yeah. And then I made another one where I put 4x4s in the ground and I notched out the top where I could take my bench bar and put it on the top and then do pull-ups.
Yeah.
And so that was my first equipment I ever made. And then, they would just like, what do you want? My brother's like, what do you want? And they would kind of make me some dumbbells, and then would be all these odd 12.8 pounds because they're just cutting up metal.
Yeah.
And machining it, smoothing it off, and then welding it together. And they made a little tier squat rack for me. Made a lat pull down with like a pulley where I had to sit on my, kneel down and pull.
Sure. And
with like just a pin where you just stack the weights on the pin. And that's in my yard. I made a pull sled to run, to do sprints with.
Who did you, but like pulling sleds in the 70s was not a thing. Where
I just, I was like, I don't know what I saw, but I decided I took a pair of shoulder pads. I just tied a rope underneath it and to the sled. I would just slide the pads over my shoulders and then run, dragging the sled. I have no idea. I mean, I'm a little kid and I'm just training. Well, then when I got to junior high, which is really weird, is there weren't strength coaches. There were very few strength coaches in college.
Oh yeah. It was brand new. It was a
brand new field.
Yeah.
I go to a junior high, Ellender Memorial Junior High. It's a high school now in Houma, Louisiana. It's built in a cane field, middle of nowhere. Damn. And I had a coach who played football at Southern, and he took a classroom, and we had incline bench, regular benches, squat racks, all iron weights. And we're just dropping it on concrete floor. And he taught us how to lift. And I just fell.
What was his background? Now that you know him,
he just played college football. He just played college football, and I mean he was all jacked up. And, I'm 13, 14 years old. And, that's when I saw a picture of Arnold. And I was like, that dude gets a lot of chicks. I need to get as big as him. And that was the only thought in my mind. So bodybuilding really was my first forte because that's all I knew. And
Right.
Louisiana has a crazy amount of bodybuilders, starting with Red Laurel, who
Oh, the
was,
health
was
club guy,
yeah, the
right?
health club in Lafayette,
Yeah.
but he was with Steve Reeves and all those guys.
Boyer Co, I
Well,
think.
Boyarko's later, but this is
Yeah.
in the 50s with like Bill Pearl, Steve Reeves. He was at Muscle Beach in California, but he was from Louisiana. And
Oh,
he was one of those guys that was training at that time. And then he moved back to Louisiana and started up Red Laurel's gym. Then became this huge health club. But then you had Boyer Co. Um, and quite a few other Casey Viator.
yes.
Yeah, so you had all these, and Louisiana was like huge in bodybuilding in the 80s. Like
There's
all
a
these,
story on that, Kurt. On like if you Google his gym, I guess that area's like was run down. Now it's starting to get built back up. But there's a story on it on some website. People took photos of it. And then I think his like grandson or nephew or daughter or something, commented about how he was building his own equipment and he was like
yeah,
this first health club innovator.
that's where Body Masters equipment came from.
I have a Body Master standing leg curl in my gym.
Okay. Well, Boyer Co's was
Yes,
like he was the front guy for Body Masters.
I
It was
remember.
built outside of Lafayette in Rain, Louisiana, was where the company was. And it was like really good selectorized equipment. It was like
And
awesome. It was like better than it was like pre Cybexx and all that stuff.
and it wasn't a cable, it was like a belt.
Yeah,
So it was stronger.
it was a lot stronger.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, you had that huge bodybuilding influence. Then Gail Hatch, who was our U.S. national Olympic lifting coach.
He was your mentor.
Yes,
Crazy.
he lived in Baton Rouge, and so I moved in ninth grade from South Louisiana to Baton Rouge. And
Why did your family move?
my mom transferred to a job in Baton Rouge, and so we moved there, and his facility was right behind my high school.
What did his facility look like?
The first one was just, it looked like something out of Russia. It was just handmade. All his platforms were handmade.
Yep.
And I think he had like 12 or 13 at the time, platforms with just handmade standalone.
That's
racks.
a lot. That's pretty big.
Yeah. Well, when he moved out on the other side of Airline Highway, he probably had, I don't know, maybe 16 platforms. And even then it was all handmade. Everything was handmade. Even
It was a training hall. He made a training hall.
It was just a training. It was just a hardcore training facility, and it was just all, he was training guys for the Olympics. So we had guys on our football and all these guys from Baton Rouge that were on that made our U.S. Olympic lifting team.
Tell me about what was it like the first time you walked into his facility and kind of what preempted it? Were you researching it? How'd you find out about him?
He came to our high school. He came to our high school to talk to us about training.
Mhm.
And, we had nothing at our high school to train. So he just to get guys over. And then, he's 6'5". He played in the ABA. He played basketball. Yes, he played.
I didn't know.
Yeah, he was Northwestern Louisiana State University's leading scorer. He played in the ABA, like back with Dr. J and those guys.
Yeah.
And he was just always interested in training. So then he went to the Eastern Bloc and learned from some of the greatest guys, and then came back and, he just has this passion for lifting and lifting drug free. And
wait, let me ask you, Kurt, how did he went to, because in the 70s, it was still Soviet Union. Like, so how did they let Americans in? I mean, how did that work?
Yeah. He went in and they had a couple of other strength coaches like Al Miller and, who went right after him. And I think there, as far as like coaching, that was like maybe one of the easiest ways probably to get in.
Yeah. And so he goes and speaks at your school. He's 6'5". I mean, that's massive.
He's like half Irish, half Cherokee Indian.
Oh, wow.
So he intimidating, deep, booming voice.
Yeah.
Super, super commanding. Like he's one of those guys that even if you had your head away from the door, facing away, and he walked into the room, you would feel it. That's that kind of personality he had.
His
aura.
It's
pretty, just super intimidating. But one of he's the finest coach I've ever been around. I mean, just demanded everything out of you. I mean, demanded your best every day. I mean, he was hard on everybody. And then like going through, kind of going
Well,
off to going
well,
off to play ball.
what was the first, go back to just, he goes and speaks to your school. And then what does he do? He says, if you want to get better at football, come with
train.
me.
Yeah, come train. Look, I'm right across the road. Come
And
train
so
with
how did
us.
what did you do?
So
Did you speak to your parents about it or no?
No, I used to walk home from school. So I just walked in.
And then what happened?
Kind of like what you did when you walked into, that gym, and then you just walked in, kind of walked around, looked around, and he grabbed me and said, "I get on, just kind of get on the platform, and this is the warm up. Here's a broomstick. This is what we're going to start with," and we went from there, and then
he coached you alone. There were no.
He was the only one in there.
What about other guys lifting?
No, there were other. He had Tommy Calandro, who was ahead of me, went to the same high school, but about 5 or 6 years ahead of me, who was on our U.S. Olympic lifting team.
What was his setup? Was platforms and barbells?
It's platforms, Alico weights, and bars.
What about the Michael Yesse's glute ham developer? What about any of that stuff?
He had 1 or 2 power racks with some bent Texas bars for doing shrugs. Okay. Because they put 400, 500, 600 pounds to do shrugs with.
And then was there a workout on a chalkboard? How was he organized? You walk in and
he had a book. He had a book that's like that thick, that's falling up, and he would just write everything down. He just tell you what to do, what weight, and he's such a IQ for numbers. Mm-hmm. Like he always knew where you were at, and just visually, he'd just say, put this on the bar. When you got older, then it was more, kind of percentage based. But when you were young, just starting out, it was just a broomstick and a bar.
All right. So what was your first workout there?
It was overhead. It was teaching overhead squats, SOTS presses, with just a stick, which I still despise. And learning the snatch, and learning the clean, and learning the jerk.
Boom! Right away.
Yeah, and I stayed with him for, high school. Then went off to college.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to Southeastern Louisiana State, which is about 45 minutes from Baton Rouge, and then they dropped football and all, and then I ended up transferring to Tulane and getting a degree in physiology from Tulane.
So. You started lifting at Gail Hatch's gym as a freshman. So you had 4 years of weightlifting under the master.
Off and on when I could afford it. Because my
How
mom,
much was it?
Oh God, you're talking about
$5 a month, $10?
No, it's probably around 25 a month.
At what? And what year was that? Mid 80s?
This was 81, 82.
Okay, and $25 back then was substantial.
Yeah.
That was substantial. What's interesting now is, like I always say, I trained at gyms that were 35, then they became 40, then they became 4. They increased the price to $45 a month, but nothing was upgraded in the gym. But now gyms are $10 a month and they're, monstrous in size. It's just interesting. So, but let's talk about your high school lifting off and on in there. What did your workouts look like as you started learning the lifts?
You go 3 days a week at first, and you would snatch, you would snatch from the floor, clean, and things like people don't understand. Like people think in America that power clean means from the floor. Power just means catching in a quarter squat position.
Correct. Yep.
It could be so it could be power from the hang, from below the knee, from the floor. Whether it's snatch or clean. So power only means how you catch the bar. You're not dropping into the full lift.
Correct.
So like on Mondays, was, overhead squat, then power, then doing snatch from the floor, from power position, then power hang clean, and then snatch pull, then front squat, and usually it was like a pull up. And then on Wednesday, was a jerk, was rack jerk, jerk from the front, hang snatch, RDLs are good mornings, a lunge or a step up. And then on Fridays was like clean and jerk, snatch, back squat, And sometimes, then it was like a push up or bench press.
Interesting
So
that even like he's having you do lunges and step ups, because I look at like when I was in high school, early 90s, I never saw the football team do any unilateral work. And so
yeah.
Gail Hatch is doing that as weightlifter. What did he tell you about eating to get big? Like what did he say to you?
I mean, he really didn't delve that much into your diet and nutrition. But you're talking about this is the early '80s.
Yeah.
It was like protein powder wasn't even. They had like Universal had some, and it was like god awful tasting.
Oh man, stuff is
And
so bad.
Beverly
Beverly
International.
International.
Beverly International. That was like really, really bad.
Yeah.
And then we used to like take, desiccated. We used to eat. I remember
Desiccated
eating
liver tablets.
liver tablets like it was
Yes.
like candy. That was like chalk. And so it's mostly like living off of peanut butter, like 4,000 peanut butter sandwiches a day trying to gain
Yes.
weight.
That is great. So how big did you get through high school, kind of training under him and even on and off implementing his knowledge?
I mean, I really didn't get bigger. I got a lot stronger.
Why do you think you didn't get bigger? Why did you not get bigger?
Because you didn't do a lot of hypertrophy work.
Yeah.
It's all strength work. And I got bigger, but not like when I got to college. I mean, I was in high school, I was like 150, maybe went to 170. I mean, I got bigger. It was just not what people think
Sure.
is big. But then in college, I pretty much got the heaviest I was 218.
Well, that's pretty big, dude. So why,
at 5'9".
at 5'9"? Yeah, I'm 5'10". So yeah, that's pretty big. What, when you were in high school and you're experiencing these, workouts with Coach Hatch, and then you go to college, what did you think you were going to do with this physiology degree? I mean, there was no such strength coach. I didn't even hear that word until like 2002.
Yeah. I wasn't going to go to nursing school because, nurses were making a ton of money in Louisiana. Male nurses were like unheard of. They were moving into administration really fast and making a lot of money, for that time. So I was already in science. And then just through reading, I knew I didn't want to be a football coach. I love to play the game.
Yeah.
I love the physicality of the game. I love bashing my head into other people. It was just awesome, but I didn't want to teach it. But I love the mental aspect of getting ready for the game.
Sure.
I think that's what pushed me into wanting to be a strength coach. And
who was the first strength coach you came across? Gail Hatch is doing his private thing.
That was just, Olympic weight. That was weightlifting.
Weightlifting.
When I was in college, it was like, usually back then in small colleges, usually it was an O-line or D-line coach who didn't want to recruit. So he stayed back and would train the team. And so when we walk in, he'd say, all right, Kurt, what are we going to do today? Just draw. So that's kind of like, I was kind of my own first strength coach, and I kind of learned, and I would just start throwing stuff up on the board. Then I don't know if you got a point in time in life where you were training in high school and right outside of high school, but everybody was always asking you how to train.
In high school.
Yeah. Everybody was always asking me what to do, especially right outside of high school. So it was kind of like you're already kind of a strength coach because people kind of made you a strength coach because you had more knowledge than anybody else. And, when you walked into those gyms, it was always, you always took knowledge from the biggest guys that were in that gym. And
yes.
And even though a lot of times it probably wasn't very scientific,
no doubt.
But they were the biggest guys, and that you thought they were gods, and so that's kind of what you did. And then through being in physiology and learning, my first classes were exercise physiology classes and anatomy and physiology and vertebrae and physiology, and then epidemiology and genetics. And Tulane's a pretty tough school, and that program is really, really tough. Basically everybody goes to med school from that program. And I remember them asking me, why in the hell did you come to Tulane and you're in physiology, you're not going to go to med school? So because I wanted a great degree to help me become a great coach. And they're like, you're an idiot to have, this university is so expensive. And I was like, well, I'm not paying for it, so I don't care. I got I'm on a scholarship. So, I want to be a coach.
Yeah. where was your first, did you do an internship after Tulane for strength and conditioning?
I
Where
was
did you
there.
start?
I'm working in the physiology lab, doing a bunch of working with some professors, doing research.
As what, a
And
GA or?
yeah, I was like, yeah, as well as I was like an undergrad.
Undergrad?
It was like an undergrad. It was like an undergrad assistantship. So I was
Yep.
getting paid to work with athletes, and so I was doing a lot of testing and measurement on basketball, on baseball, and their tennis teams.
What were you measuring?
Just we're doing like Wingate tests, we're doing
Yeah.
VO2 maxes, we're doing a lot of body fat, we're doing a lot of different analysis for the coaches. And a guy walks in and he's like, "Hey, my name is Tom Shaw, and do you work in the lab?" I said, "Yeah, and so we started talking, and he gave me his background. He was he was at Florida State, trained Deion Sanders and all these guys. He was their sprints and pole vault coach.
So Tom was a track athlete. Is that what he was?
Yeah, he was a sprinter and a pole vaulter in college, and then he became a track coach.
He's now at like Disney, Wide World of Sport.
Yeah, he was last year. Last year he was with the Raiders, and now he's back.
Okay.
He had his own business at Wild World of Sports. Then he worked with the Raiders, and now he's back at Wild World of Sports.
I never, like, when I would see his stuff, I was like, how's a guy in Disney? I'm still not sure.
Oh, dude, only Tom can pull that off, where they give him full access to all of Wide World Sports, the tracks, the fields, the weight room, for literally nothing, and they put up the athletes when they come there. I think they just want the athletes to be there with their families and stuff. And it's like a promotional thing for them to have all these different athletes from around the world come in there and train. So he comes. So he came in. So I was under Tom. I made a trade-off. I said, I'll do all the testing for football, because he was a speed coach for football.
What year was this?
This is like, this is like 90, like somewhere in the 90s, like early 90s, probably like right when he's right. Yeah, right.
That's way ahead of his time. Early 90s is to be a speed coach.
To be a speed coach. And
unheard of.
I told him, I was like, look, I'll do a trade-off. Let me be your assistant.
Yep.
And I will do all this. I will do all the testing, but I want to know what you know. And he's like, deal. So for 2 years I was with him. Then he left and went to the Saints, and then they made me the speed coach and assistant strength coach for football. And then I was gonna stay there and get my master's in nutrition. I didn't want a master's in physics. I wanted something completely different. And
smart, very smart.
And then LSU called me and wanted to interview me to be a speed coach and strength coach for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I go there and I get there, and my interview was maybe 15 minutes. And I asked the head coach, when do you want me to start? He goes, right now. You got the next group. And I'm in a suit. I take my jacket off. I take my tie off. I got khakis on, hard sole shoes. I just rolled my sleeves up, walked through the door, grabbed their manual. I waited at the door till the athletes came in. I just started telling them what to do. And I was there he just let me by myself. He didn't even come out, didn't introduce me, anything. And I just started yelling, telling people what to do. And like within 15 minutes, one kid raises his hand. I said, what? He goes, Coach, what do we call you? And because I was just, all right, workout, let's go.
This is LSU you're at.
This is at LSU. So then they made me the head street coach for baseball, and we won. This is how lucky I am. Like I'm just like, Tom fell into my lap. LSU fell into my lap. LSU baseball falls in my lap.
But how did LSU find out about you? How did that all happen? They called you.
They called Tom, asking Tom, I think maybe to come down and do a seminar or something. He goes, why don't you just hire Kurt? He's better than me coming down for 1 week. Have somebody knows the system front to back.
So you were interviewed by who? The football coach or the AD?
The head strength coach.
Oh, the head strength coach was interviewing you and then said, what team did you train that 15 minutes later?
It was football. It was in-season football. And
what did you say what was your introduction? What did you say to them?
When they walked in, I just said, all right, guys, this is what we're doing today. Line up, I just started going through, I grabbed his workout manual. Right. I just went through it. And then like halfway, the one athlete, raised his hand and said, what do we call you? So just call me Coach Hester, call me Coach Kurt. Yeah. And let's roll. And, all right, cool. And I was super animated with them. So they loved it. And
yes.
And then I had a meeting. Then the next day, like, okay, you got a meeting with baseball and basketball. So
You're still kind of in the interview process, right?
yeah, it was like, so I met with baseball and they'd never had a strength coach before.
Yeah.
And so I kind of went through what I thought we should do. And Skip Bertman, who's one of the greatest baseball coaches in the history of college baseball, it's like, okay, you're my guy.
Well, Kurt,
And,
what, you have this weightlifting background, so you go overhead. What did you tell this baseball coach what you think they should be doing?
well, his first thing was, coach, he goes, Kurt, I want the biggest team in America.
Oh, damn.
And I was like, okay. So are you committing to that? And I was laughing because he's a baseball coach. And I said,
Right.
okay. Yeah, I said, will you let me do what I need to do? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay. So he never questioned what I did in the weight room. But then I said, I knew that he ran the pitchers a 5-mile course and a 3-mile course around the lakes of LSU.
Jesus.
And I said, Coach, I can't get these players bigger if you're running them into the ground mileage wise. And he goes, yeah, but Kurt, the pitchers need to be conditioned.
Right.
So we're in a meeting in the dugout at the baseball field talking. And so he's smoking a cigar and he's got this rough voice. He's, he's Jewish. He's from Miami. And he's like, well, Kurt, they got to be in condition. They got to pitch a whole game. And so I said, okay, hold on. I walked out to the pitcher's mound, started jogging circles around the mound, real slow. And then he finally yells at me, cursing me out. What the hell are you doing? I said, Coach. So I stopped. I said, is this what a pitcher does during the game? He goes, hell no. I said, then why are we doing it to get him ready for the game?
Right.
And he just stopped. And so I got on the mound and I pushed off as hard as I could driving down. I said, isn't that like a jump? He was like, yeah. I said, do they sprint to first base and they need to go fast to cover first? He goes, yeah. I said, okay. Do they need to sprint to home to cover home? Yes. I said, all right, that's fast. That's not slow. I'm trying to give you a mental picture. Right. We need to do all plyometric work and short sprints. I said, how long does it take for you to call to signal a pitch in? And he goes, oh, it takes, I said, okay, by the time you signal the pitch to the catcher signals it to the pitcher, and the pitcher does all his goofy stuff that he does to get ready to throw the ball. I said, that's a ton of time. You don't have to you don't have to run mileage to be in that kind of shape. Yeah. Let's train to get bigger. Let's train to get more explosive. Let's train to get stronger. And they'll have just them being able to push off the mound harder. They have more velocity on their ball. And he goes, okay. He goes, what else do you need? And this is a time where no one bought supplements. EAS was just really coming out,
dude,
with all their stuff.
I was a big EAS consumer.
And so he goes, what else do you need? I said, we need some supplements. And even the football team at the time didn't have supplements. And he goes, how much do you need? I said, I need about $20,000.
Okay.
I'm just threw a number out.
Yeah.
He goes, all right, done.
Oh, dude, I really like this story.
Yeah. So, so I've got protein powder in barrels. I've got those centrifugal spray machines, like in a old school drugstore, just where the water shoots, like it's like punch usually in it.
Yes.
Well, I put protein in one, and I put grape juice with creatine in the other one.
What, like the phosphagen creatine?
Yeah, I would just dump it in there.
That stuff worked.
That stuff was like the best.
Dude, this is amazing.
And so, our players were like, they called it gorilla ball. They were like, when we went to Omaha, they were everybody was intimidated how big everybody was compared to the normal little skinny baseball player that's over there with a little dumbbell doing his little goofy band exercises.
Were you doing that's a big thing now, Kurt, is you hear coaches say, I don't want to do cleans with baseball guys because it's their hands. They don't want to go overhead. Here and there, I hear of coaches saying, yeah, they need strong shoulders. Let's get them overhead.
Yeah. We did overhead squats. Some of them who had snapped, because Skip was a little different. He would recruit guys who were like really talented football players that were great baseball players. So they weren't good enough to be like a Division I football player, but they were like an FCS. Yeah. Like an FCS player. So, okay, you can go play FCS football, or you can come over here and win a national championship and play LSU baseball.
Damn.
And so we had all these guys. We had a couple from New Jersey who were, who were all-state running backs, and
I wonder where they were from.
And, I want to say one of them was Bosco.
Oh yeah, that's a big prep school up in North
Yeah.
Jersey.
Yeah. And,
Phil Simms' son went there. Oh
his,
yeah,
name, his name was Mike Kerner, and he was a running back. He was all-state running back, and
yeah,
we had a pitcher from up there, and then most of our players were from Louisiana, but they were like our left fielder was a leading rusher in the state of Louisiana that year, and he was his senior year in high school, and he became most of our a lot of our pitchers were quarterbacks.
Sure.
So they had a different mentality. They loved to train,
Yeah.
and the weirdest thing is the dudes loved to shrug. They wanted huge traps because it said it made them look bigger when they went up to bat.
Yeah.
And so we did we did every kind of shrug exercise at the end of every workout,
Right.
just so they could look even bigger with traps. So
what kind of shrugs were you guys doing?
So we're doing like rack shrugs, from a front rack position.
Wow.
We did overhead shrugs, which gave them better T-spine mobility.
Yeah.
We did power shrugs, where it's like really, it's with a snatch grip or a clean grip, where it's not slow, it's quick, it's a really explosive shrug. They do them from behind the back, with a barbell.
That was the old Lee Haney would do the behind the back shrug.
We do, dumbbell pause shrugs. I mean, so they that was their, which is really weird for a baseball team, but that was their thing.
I haven't done an overhead shrug or implemented that with athletes ever. Are you doing that still? You do that?
That's our warm up. Like our warm up, we'll do overhead squat, and then we'll do 5 overhead squats and 10 overhead shrugs.
With the snatch grip.
Warm up with a snatch grip. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it opens up your T-spine a lot. When you extend, when you get that extension, it opens you up.
I got a couple questions here, Kurt. So first off, training the baseball team, were you benching with them, going overhead with them?
We did a lot of floor and 3-board.
Oh, 3-board. Nice. What about overhead work?
We did some neutral grip pressing with dumbbells more than anything. We didn't do jerks. We did a lot of pulling. We did a lot of snatch pull, clean pull, snatch high pull, clean high pull. Some racked it, depending on their shoulders or their wrists. But it depended on the athlete. But a lot of them did full, did the full lift.
I think it's like, if you are as a coach, if you're so conservative and like you coddle the kids, then they become soft.
Well, here's the funny thing is, back then, people thought I was insane. They're like, he doesn't know what he's doing. They're baseball athletes, blah, blah, blah. You can't train them like a football player. It's like, no, I'm training them like an athlete. Yeah. I'm not training them like a baseball player or a football player. I'm training them like an athlete who happens to throw a little white ball. Now, we did do a lot of, even then, I didn't even know what to call it, but it was like anti-rotational type work, a lot of med ball work, a lot of rotator cuff and shoulder stability work.
What was your anti-rotational work? What was some of the stuff you did?
We were doing a lot of we were using med balls that we didn't have bands back then. So we were doing med ball, basically like a Pavlov press, but with a med ball.
Yeah.
And going overhead, dropping down, and we just didn't. There was such thing as a band back then.
Yeah.
We didn't have strength bands. I mean, chains was like, that's kind of about when Louis was kind of starting to come out with some of his historic acceleration and some of his stuff. And, after he kind of dissected Mel Siff's book and started working with
Dick Hartzell.
Kind of building his conjugate method and stuff. So that was pre all that. But, we did, they did a lot of floor bench. I took a PVC pipe about this big around and I cut it in half. So it was like a bowl, and I bolted a piece of plywood about that thick inside both sides and notched it out and put a piece of Velcro over it where the notch could go against the bar, and I Velcroed it. Yeah. And then you could just come down and it stops you at about 3-board height.
A thick bar, essentially.
Well, basically, it's like it just connected to the bar. So when I came down, it stopped me at parallel, just like a floor bench would.
Okay. But you used the PVC pipe? So
yeah. So like how much it looked like it looked like this from the side. It looked like that from the side.
It looked
right, so I had this. This was
Yeah.
All right. So then I had a piece of Velcro that strap that go over
Elite
the top.
FTS sells them now. I think they call them like a shoulder saver pad or
Yeah.
something.
Well, so this was a half of a piece of PVC pipe. It was
Yeah.
about that big around.
Yes, I
So I
got
just
you.
cut it in half.
Yeah.
And so just stick it. And so so it was on the bit. So you didn't have to lay on the floor
Right.
or hold a phone book at a time. We used to just tape up phone books.
That is great.
And so I made those, and I had a bunch of those, and so it was just easier to lay on the floor and get guys to hand, because we had some really strong guys. All right, center field was a 405 bencher, So
Damn.
just we had. Most of our fielders were like 315 and above. Most of our pitchers squatted up close to 500.
And what's interesting too is, like, sometimes I catch myself saying, oh, I work with a pretty high level pitcher now. My son is getting older and really into pitching. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I would ever use a straight bar. Then I follow like the guys, who are doing strength and conditioning for the Phillies. They're using a straight bar. I look at the guys over at Driveline out in Seattle.
Yeah.
They're lifting very heavy. Yeah. I think it's just like,
well, like
sometimes I overthink stuff.
No, it's not overthinking. It's the fact that it's the paranoia.
Yes.
And the lack of education that people were kind of thrown at us, especially me, because I was doing this. And they're like, I can't tell you how many times I heard like major league managers, because they were always coming to LSU, like, Kurt, you can't train baseball players like that. I said, why not? Well, we don't do it at the major league level. I said, well, these guys are trying to get to the major league level. How are they going to get there if you don't develop them? And I said, we have no injuries. They're not getting hurt. They love to train. They feel, from a mental standpoint, they walk on the field and think they're a god, And so, then all of a sudden, like, about 10 years ago, the NSCA started putting out, oh, it's okay to use Olympic lifts for baseball players, and that's like, 10 or 15 years after I'd already been doing it.
Sure. Your lab is the weight room. And I'm looking like behind you on the whiteboard, it says transfer of training.
Yeah, that's stuff that I'm writing for January, our off-season plan. So I just write notes.
I'm like thinking, Kurt, isn't, confidence the ultimate transfer of training? Like, if you don't believe in yourself, if the athlete does not believe in what, or if they do believe in the training and, like, quote unquote, it's wrong. Look, dude, they're confident. Let me back up a second. What about, Tom Shaw? I honestly feel, if I look at myself, what is my weakness? My weakness is teaching. I do have field athletes, I've got ball athletes. So I've got baseball players, basketball players, I've trained so many high school kids, but I always am like, I got to get better at this speed training, legitimate speed training. From what you've learned from Tom, from what you've been doing through the decades, what it would be important for a coach like myself to implement with speed? Is it the technical stuff, or is it just get them run fast?
It's some base technical work, because you got to think about, in most sports, it's all about acceleration, deceleration. You either have a ball in your hand, a glove in your hand, a stick in your hand. So mechanics, you need to have like a general knowledge of mechanics and know how to run well without an implement in your hand. Okay. But you got to understand that when you're reacting to another human, your body's going 10 different directions at one time. Yeah. Just in reacting to their movement, from what you visually see and what you cognitively retain from that interaction. And so yes, you do need them. One, to keep them healthy, because most athletes are backside sprinters, so they're kicking almost like a butt kick, like their backside. Their feet are always behind them, and to teach them to be more front side, to teach their, as far as their where their hands and elbows go, are not crossing their body, and their body weight's not shifting from left to right. Their head level, where their eyes are looking, downfield, not up or not down. There's just like base stuff that you can do for velocity and acceleration. But when it comes down to it, you put a football in a kid's hand, his hands and feet are going in 1,000 different directions, trying to get away from another human. So it is important, and at the same time, teaching deceleration mechanics and teaching acceleration mechanics is probably more imperative, and doing real COD work where they're reacting against another stimulus, because that's what they're doing on the field.
We do
They're
a
not,
lot. Yeah.
they're not running and touching a cone. They're not like, oh, go to cone A, then B, and then C, or run over this bag, or run over that bag. Those are basic drills that you do with a really young athlete
Sure.
for motor coordination. But once they get older, it needs to be almost all your changes, all your COD work has to have that cognitive aspect.
So for a couple weeks ago, I led our athletes. I was telling somebody about it yesterday. I coach like 5-6 groups a day at a high school. Then I run my gym for 3 groups a day. And I was like, man, I'm shot. I'm going to let these kids create the warm up. So I let them create a warm up. And I'm like, do something that we don't normally do. And, with COVID that happened in March, this first kid, each kid had to do something. He's like, okay, fireman's carry. He grabbed the kid. I was like, finally, we're actually touching somebody. It's been like 8 months, I haven't shaken a hand. He just grabs a dude. Then they did the partner wheelbarrow. Then like the next, each group is like evolving. I say, use the med balls. Dude says, he's like, all right, we're going to do tag. And then I was like, and then another guy's like, why tag? Why not just do like pegging with the medicine ball? And so like we had guys, I'm looking at it and I'm just saying like, this is the ultimate speed and agility. They have to decelerate, accelerate, change direction. They react. They had to catch, you could catch if the guy threw the medicine ball at you. And I always look at, people get so duped, Kurt, they get parents, especially, you worked at that, the company D1 when it was first starting. And so, and that was a big time when speed and agility was even a bigger buzzword. And so people get duped, they run through a ladder, right? And all this stuff. And they believe that that's what makes them fast. So, from what you learned from Tom, let's now kind of jump into a little bit of, when you helped, what did you do? Did you have to resign from Louisiana Tech to go work with D1 as a company?
No, it was the other. I left LSU.
Okay.
And I started my own company, and it was called HS2 Performance.
What does that stand for?
Hester Speed and Strength.
Okay.
HS2.
Yep. HS2.
And so I built this, it's back when I think maybe Mike Boyle was the only one that had a training facility for anybody in the country. So I think it was Mike, then me.
So you left LSU, one of the best or the best. Were you guys national champs in baseball?
2 years in a row.
And you freaking leave.
Yeah. So
why do you, looking back, why do you think you had the guts to leave? What looking back?
It got to a point where it was like between me and the head strength coach, it was a lot of, I was doing almost all the work. I was doing all the programming. We had no GAs. I have got basketball, football, all by myself. Got basketball, football, and baseball by myself. Women's golf.
Wasn't the head guy doing the work?
He thought he had that mentality that I made it to the top, and everybody else is going to work. And he didn't even hardly show up for any of the football training sessions. So even the football team looked at me as like the head guy. And so it was a lot of ended up animosity there. So I leave, open up my own training facility. And a year later, the head football coach tries to get me to come back to be the head guy.
Okay. And
I was like, I knew that they were all going to get fired.
How was your company doing though?
I was training. I was making more money by myself than they were offering me to be the head strength coach at LSU at the time.
What equipment did you set up in your first facility?
I built all just like Coach Hatch did. I built all my platforms just like he did. Okay. I had all Muscle Max racks, just like standalone.
Who's Muscle Max? Is that the company that makes the belt squat?
That's Louis them. It's what Power Systems was using for a long time in the Power Systems magazine.
There is a belt squat, not that Louis makes. That it's called. I thought it is Muscle Max. All right, so
there's Pit Shark, and then
this belt squat has the hole and the weights go down. Donnie Thompson has one.
Okay.
All right. So you built your platforms.
Pretty much built everything, all my plyo boxes, platforms. So I started out with 6 platforms, 2 benches, 1 power rack, and
turf. Did you have turf or no?
No, I had a field outside.
Perfect.
I had about 30 by 80 yard field outside. and
big.
I built a sand pit out there. I got some old carpet.
Why
and
did
put
you
it
do
down.
the sand pit? Because I see Tom using sand at Wide World of Sports, and a
We
lot
would
of people
do
say it's not good to use sand.
well when you're dealing with like heavier athletes and
Yeah,
plyometrics, so it's easier on their joints to start out
sure.
with. My first progression would be sand because it's easier on their landing.
Right.
Or doing, it's like, I'm already outside. A lot of times they have their, to switch in and out of cleats. So, well, why don't you just do box jumps? Well, they got cleats on because we're outside. So then they'd have to switch in and out of cleats to do box jumps. So it decreases the impact of the landing. But I would do basically resist release in the sand. So I'd back the athletes up like about 8 yards into the sand pit, and the sand pit was open ended. So they would sprint out, and as soon as they hit hard ground, it was like overspeed. They hit that because you're putting they generate as much force as they can into the ground in the sand, and they're not getting any force coming back. They're not getting a reaction coming back. But once that foot hits that freaking turf, that impact, and it's just like doing overspeed where you're holding them and then you release them to run. So I'm just letting them run with where it doesn't screw up their mechanics.
Yeah.
They can sprint through the sand, hit the hard surface, and accelerate through the hard surface.
You know what's interesting is how you're talking about the sand is good for heavy guys. With me working with wrestling, it's a big thing to take these guys and do stadium workouts. They run the stadium stairs, then they're sprinting laps. Well, if you weigh 250, it's very hard to do that compared to the kid who weighs 130.
Yeah.
It's just, I get it. We're a team, but it's like,
Right.
man, that shit just actually kills the big guys.
But when you put them in the sand, metabolically, what you're trying to induce as, for a wrestler, it's easier on their knees, ankles, and back, on their joints for a bigger athlete. But you can it's still all resistance, and you can develop a lot of different things that they can do in the sand that's going to mimic rounds that they do on the mat.
Also, I just look at it like, what's wrong with just changing, a little bit of sand, a little bit of different surface.
Yeah.
Of course, Louis says, hey, that's the conjugate method. It develops athleticism because think about it, even at the high school level, they might play on grass, they might play on turf. I don't want to hear, oh, we could only play on turf. My buddy John Welborn said when the turf when he was with the Eagles, he said it was horrific. He blew out his entire knee. He said it was like, there was divots. He's like, it was like running on cement. It was horrific. So when you train on different surfaces, or I change the training, I just feel like it prepares the athlete, not just physically, but emotionally for the unknown that happens. We're going to travel. We're going to be on different. Yeah. So what happened after the 1 year of running your facility?
Well, I ran it for ran it for quite a few years. I mean, I trained 500 athletes a day.
Holy shit.
From 12 years old to pro athletes. So,
that's insane.
Like I said, Mike Boyle was one that, had his in Boston. I had mine in South Louisiana, and, had a lot of agents that very few people were training athletes for the combine.
Right.
So all these agents that were recruiting our guys at LSU, when I was coaching at LSU, started calling me to train their athletes. So, yeah. I would have like 30 guys come in every year to train for the draft. I had 3 5A high school. 5A is the largest in Louisiana. I had 3 5A high school football teams I trained year round.
What, they would go to you or you'd go to them?
No, they come to me.
How many kids would you train at a time with like the 6
I would train like
platforms?
I built up to I built up to 18. Built up to 18.
Modeled it after what Hatch had.
Basically, I had 18 platforms, 8 flat benches, 8 incline benches, and 4 glute hams.
I'm shocked you had flat and incline benches. Why were there no adjustable benches to slide in and out of?
Yeah, they were relatively cheap. And the thing is, I didn't have the cage. I just had this straight up squat rack.
Why would you get, incline benching was a thing. I saw Olympic, weightlifters doing high inclines, Phil Gripaldi. I'd see
Yeah.
weight, so who turned you on to the incline benches?
I
Why?
think it's just part of my bodybuilding heritage, man.
Yeah.
You know?
What do you think about that stuff now? Like,
Well, if you look at the angle that a D lineman comes off the ball, it's more at that. It's pretty much at that angle. So we do a lot. I do with D lineman. We do more incline bench than we do flat. Most O linemen they're punching straight out.
okay.
So I'm working more. I'll work more flat with them. But strength is strength.
What about, I like that. What about when the bar path comes down on an incline? Are you going high on the collarbone, or you just let them naturally go where the bar goes?
It's like right. I'll go right below the collarbone.
Yeah. Up here is what they told us in bodybuilding. Come up high, but that kills the shoulders. Yeah. So,
but we'll go, we got a narrower grip and the elbows stay tight in. So that alleviates a lot of that.
Right. I think I saw, you got this new weight room where you are a couple of years ago. How many years ago did you get that upgrade?
I think it's four.
So I would like look at your videos and see what specialty bars you had. And I think I saw like a safety bar and a neutral bar on everyone. What have you seen differently, Kurt? You've been coaching for decades. I asked this question to Matt Nickel. I ask it to any coach who's has 20 plus years. I wonder, were we just not as knowledgeable, where we didn't notice the ankle collapse, the foot, what are you seeing now compared to back then? And are these like mobility weird issues that we see? Is it a bad thing, or is it just the kid is so weak, he has no stability and we got to build it? I know it's
probably a little of both, but I think when I get this question all the time about like weight rooms, and everybody's always trying to sell specialty equipment.
Okay.
And for me, I would rather have 5 different kind of bars on my racks than go buy one piece of equipment that would cost the same amount of money that I'd only put one athlete on at a time.
What would that be?
If you had like a leg press, okay. So, we got this special isolateral leg press, and for this and that, I'm like, well, what, if I can't afford 10 of them.
Correct.
One of them doesn't do me any good because I got 105 football players, so I would rather have, a trap bar, a fat bar, a tsunami bar, a multi-grip bar, because I can do a million, because I can do a million different exercises with with those bars than I can on that one modality.
One machine. Kurt, what I'm thinking now, people blew up on you for doing Zercher squats.
Yes, which is like, you're like, why would you do right? One guy goes, why? I said, well, because we're coming off the season, their wrists and their hands are beat up. And, so I don't want them in a rack position until I can get their mobility back, get them healthy. So we just put the bar in. And so they were like, wow.
That exercise so often. I guess you have a different type of follower, but it was like, there must've been 70 comments. So like an upheaval of like, this guy's doing Zercher squat. I couldn't believe it.
It was, they're like, why wouldn't you use the safety squat bar? I said, because I have two. Right. I can't afford 16. Why don't you just do a pitch? Why don't you just do I said what Zercher mimics a closer to a front squat than if I put them on a belt squat or used a safety squat bar. And they were like, well, what about? And I'm like, dude, you don't know my athletes. That's what I tell them. You don't know my athletes. You don't know where they've been and where they're going. Context. Right now, I said, these guys, it doesn't bother them. Yeah. They can sit in the crook of their arms and they're fine with it.
Oh, they were like, it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well,
dude.
Yeah.
It was football,
if you're a typical American wuss, it is.
That's right.
Where you don't want to live.
We said it, American wuss. There it is.
You don't want to be uncomfortable because, anything that's uncomfortable is not good.
We don't do that. Yes, that is very true.
Anything we do in a weight room or on the field, no matter, I don't care if you're doing mobility work. It's to some people that's uncomfortable.
Correct.
So being, comfortable. Like our quarterback had like 365 on the bar, and he was sitting in a hole, pausing, staring at the camera for 2 seconds, and coming up. And how can you do that to a quarterback? I'm like, He's 235. He's 6 foot, 235 pounds.
Savage.
He's a freaking linebacker playing quarterback. I said he snatches like 275. He power cleans like 325. He squats almost 600. I said that load is nothing to him, and what destroys his elbows. I'm like, how? You show me data. You show me where, and they just, everybody's, social media, everybody's an expert.
You haven't posted much training on social media through the past months or year.
With COVID, I've been like
Me too.
trying to keep this team together, because of all the stuff we're going through, trying to get with opting out, with not playing and just, social justice. And it's been
Is the mask on? He slid his mask off during that set. Like you're killing America. Like people are,
and I don't wear masks. We don't wear masks when we train.
Oh, that's great.
We're not. I said we're not wearing masks. I said
good for you guys.
I'd rather you be able to breathe and suffocate while we're training.
What
I said we're testing 3 times a week, and so we're good. Don't worry about it.
That's right. You guys are testing like crazy. Kurt, so I got 2 questions. They'll probably take us, I think, like 12 minutes or so. So in order. So we're going to talk about the alligator or the crocodile. And then we're going to talk about kind of the career. I didn't realize you're in your late 50s. I don't know how much longer you're going to coach for. It's very rare that we're seeing strength coaches retire. That's like a concern in our industry, our profession. So let's go to the alligator, the croc. I don't know the difference between the alligator and the crocodile, but let's talk about what was running, the year, what started running through your mind of like, you know what, I'm going to go and get this crocodile and we're going to max out. So I'm excited.
It started with my facility, training. I had, 2 at that time. When I started, I had 1 high school football team, 1 5A at the time, but I had a bunch of other teams from other sports like baseball and soccer and everything. And so, we were maxing out in squats. And
how often did you test this?
It depended. We tested just during the off season, and so it was at the end of summer, right before they were going to go. Right before they were going to go to camp. And so, you know what? I'm gonna dress up. I had really long hair, and like Tarzan. I had like Tarzan hair.
I remember.
And so I'm gonna dress up like the Ultimate Warrior. And so I painted my face. I had cut up T-shirts on my biceps and all, and no shirt. I came in and just started like just picking guys up and throwing them on the ground, just going crazy, and getting them all.
What year was this again?
Oh man, this was probably 99, maybe.
At your private facility?
Yeah, my private. Okay. This is probably not. And so I did that, and I was just playing around, just having a good time with them, and I mean they did really. I mean they got them all geeked up, and they were throwing around some loads that they normally didn't throw around in training. So then the next year, I was just one of my assistant coaches like, hey, you gonna do something for squat day? I was like, I don't know, and they go, well, you need to do something, man. I got them all fired up. So we had a hurricane, earlier that year, and a big ass oak tree fell down by my house. So I cut it up, and I had these oak blocks. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to be the dude from Conan the Barbarian that had the sledgehammer at the end. And I forgot he was a Swedish bodybuilder. And so I chipped off all the bark. I machined a hole right through the center of it. And I took a fence post, stuck it through it, and cotter keyed both sides. So this thing weighed about 150 pounds. It was a big log with a fence post.
Yeah.
And so I had got some black and white makeup and already had the long hair. So I did like the Arnold, like painted him up like when they went down into the pit with the snake.
Yes.
So I had like my whole body painted like that. And I came in and I just yelling, and I just drove the sledgehammer through like a bench, shattered the bench. And I hit a plyo box, shattered it. Then I just picked it up and heaved it. I didn't realize I was that close to a wall, and it was so heavy, it went through the wall, like through the wall to outside. Yeah. And so that pretty much fired them up, and they're like, yeah, they're going crazy, and so.
And these are high school kids.
These are high school. This is St. Paul's Catholic high school, And so, so then the next year, They're like, all right, Kurt, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So, all right. So, one of a sheriff friend of mine was like, Kurt, I know what you ought to do. I'm going to give you some assault shotguns. I'm going to give you blanks. And you dress up like you just came out of the hood, like a Crip. And so I had like a white tank, had a red bandana around my head.
Yeah.
And I come in, just kick the door open, just shooting these blanks, like this shotgun straight up in the air. And dudes are like diving all over the place. This whole room's filled with smoke. And I was like, let's go. And they, so after that, it was like, I was done. I said, look, I can't, I'm getting like too out of control. And, and one of my guys said, coach, you got to do it. You got to do something. I said, man, the only thing I haven't done, I was joking, was I haven't like killed a bear in front of him. And he goes, no, but you need to go catch an alligator. And I was like, man, I don't know. I said, that's, it's a lot of time. And I got to go out. I got to set trap. I got to set some lines. He goes, no, coach, come on, do it. I said, all right, if you help me, my coach had played fullback for Clemson.
Oh, wow.
And so the day that we were supposed to go pull up the lines, I'd already went out in the swamp.
Well, you set like chickens, right?
Just like a half a chicken. Yeah. And you hang it over a limb and let it hang, and they stand up in the water almost, and they'll swallow it whole and pull it down.
Yeah, I've seen it on the TV show.
So I'd already done that, and so the day that we were supposed to go out and pull them up, I had to send him to a high school to train their football team, to another 5A school. So he had to leave. So I don't know if you read the book. Remember the game Ghetto Ball that I wrote about? I wrote about this game in the book, and I actually pulled my hamstring playing that game that morning.
Okay.
So I can't even hardly walk. I pulled that hamstring pretty bad. So I just took a knee wrap. I just took an Inzer knee wrap, and I just wrapped it around my leg, and I did, jump in a pirogue, which is like a Cajun flat bottom canoe, and you stand up and you push pole.
Yeah.
And so I'm push pulling through the swamp. I see the line down, so I know I got an alligator on it. So I slide up, I jump out in the swamp, and I start pulling them up real slow. Because if you pull them up real slow, they won't come out the water, like jump out the water. It's like when you see that on swamp people, they pull them up and they thrash because you pull their head all the way up. Well, I was just real slow, and the water was pretty murky. So I'm pulling slow, waiting to see his snout. I'm not gonna pull him out the water completely. I'm gonna get set up, and then I'm gonna pull him out. I don't even know how big it is because he's underwater. I can't see. So I pull, and when I pull him a little too hard, and he just shoots out of the water right at me, and I push off the same hamstring that I pulled. I just fell flat, dead in the swamp, face first. But there was a tree in front of me, and that was like knocked down, and I grabbed it, just pulled myself up on top of it, and he just kind of ran underneath it. So I reached down, I could grab the rope that he was, he had swallowed the chicken. So I grabbed the rope.
What is it, on a hook? What's
a big stainless steel hook.
Okay.
And so I pull him up to a tree, and I shove his snout into the fork of the tree where he can't move. And then I just get on his back, and I just taped his.
So you wrestled an alligator.
Well, I just got pulled him and jammed him into this fork of a tree where he couldn't move. Like, his tail could move and knock the piss out of me, knock me off my feet.
Was he trying to spin? They spin.
Well,
right?
No. When you pick him up, like I picked him up in my arms, and he was like rolling. He does a roll.
How big is it? How many?
He's probably he was like 7 foot, probably about 200, 250, somewhere around there. So I'm sitting there with him. I got his mouth taped up, and can't tape up his tail. His tail is just as dangerous. So I got this pull hamstring. I'm hurting like hell. It's July in the swamp, middle of the day. It's 1,000 degrees, mosquitoes, snakes. So I put him in. I stand up when I'm in a pirogue push pole, and I don't sit down and paddle like you paddle a canoe. It's easier to stand up and push. But I couldn't do that with him in the boat because he's going to roll and move. So the only thing I could do is I set him on the bottom, and I sat right behind basically his front legs. Like his head was between my legs. So I just sat on him so he couldn't move. And then I paddled out.
Holy crap.
So I put him in the back of my truck. I put the pirogue in the back of my truck, tied it down. I threw the alligator, I taped up his legs and all too, but the tape was like, it was, so slimy. It didn't really hold too good. So I'm driving down the road and I look in my rearview mirror. I see he's standing up in the boat looking around. I'm like, so I pull over and I throw him in the back seat of my truck. And so he's hissing and lunging at me. I'm just like swinging my hand and hitting him in the head, trying to get him to chill out. And so I just put him in a dog kennel in my backyard. I had 2 runs for the 2 hunting dogs I had. I just took them out, put them in crates in the garage. I put him in the kennel itself until it was time to do the squat day. And so when I threw it, when I was outside, I was dressed in all camo, and I told him, I said, man, when you put Kid Rock on, crank it up so I can hear it, because I'm standing outside, and then I'll kick the door open. I said, but make sure you chain every door so that no one comes in and no one comes out. And so they did that. So
how many kids were in the weight room right now in your gym?
The entire football team.
75 kids?
Oh yeah, entire 5A football, big high school football team.
Holy
At least so, yeah, probably. So 10th, 11th, 12th graders.
Yep.
And so I threw it when I threw him in. He landed on the platform. It kind of knocked him stupid, and he didn't move. So they thought it was fake.
Yeah.
And then he stood up and just went, and hissed. And they're like, oh, okay. They all moved away. And I had a big knife on my shoulder. I just jumped up and stuck it right through his head into the platform. And their rival was Mandeville High School. I said, this is what you're going to do to Mandeville High School. First game of the season, bro. I just went off. And they were like, yeah. And they, it was like to them, it was the best squat day of their life.
Oh my God, dude. Now, what did you do with the alligator? I ate alligator.
I skinned him out.
Ago.
Yeah, I skinned him out. And my son still has the skin, the tail. Yeah. Skinned him completely out. And then we probably had 40 pounds of meat.
What do you do? Grill it? I mean,
I fry mine.
What do you fry it with? What, in like butter or oil?
No, just oil. Like when you put like fish, like you're frying fish.
Yeah. Oh, so a lot
just
of
like
oil.
Just like you're frying catfish.
Yeah. Nice. Wow, man. And so what's happened to your assistant coach? He was at Clemson. What does he do now?
He actually got out of coaching and went into pharmaceutical sales and making bank.
Yeah. Interesting. That's who do you call it? Does that Cyborg, who used to always be at all the Sornex events. He's Jason. He does that. So, dude, that's so funny. You in your book, you're like, man, thank God social media wasn't out back then, because
the thing is, I told them, I said, this is like Vegas, man. Nothing leaves here.
Nice.
And they didn't say a word for 2 years.
Yeah.
Those guys were like, because I told them, I did this for y'all because I think that much of y'all to do something to fire you up. And it was a hard trade. And they ended up going to the quarters of the semis that year.
Yeah.
So they went pretty far. They almost made it to the state championship game, but they never said a word. It was like, and it was kind of like a rumor. It was like, oh, I don't know about that rumor. And then the funny thing is, Coach Holtz was recruiting in South Louisiana, and he walked into an Enterprise rent-a-car, and he had, Ruston's in North Louisiana, and he was way down South Louisiana. He had a tech hat on, a tech shirt. And the guy behind the counter goes, oh, you're a tech guy? He didn't know who he was. And he goes, right. And Skip played around, like playing with him. Yeah, I'm kind of a tech guy. And he goes, you know Kurt Hester? He goes, yeah, I've met Kurt once or twice.
Yeah.
And he goes, you ever hear the alligator story? He goes, yeah, I've heard of it. And he goes, best fucking day of my life. That's what the kid said.
Holy crap, dude. That's amazing. So, let's talk, because we probably got to go. What is it, 11:47 where you are? Or is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
11:47.
Talk to us about, I don't really have a specific question on this, Kurt, but just general thoughts on the career aspect. You were college sector, then private. Now you're back at the college sector. There's so much movement with coaches, also we could kind of look at like different geographies. There's a lot of changes in some areas, other places stay a little more stable, but what are your thoughts now on this whole strength and conditioning career?
I mean, it's a tough field because you're kind of relegated to a sport coach, whether they get hired or not. And they don't, for the most part, don't know what a good strength coach is and isn't. if you're big, ball-headed, and yell a lot, you're considered top notch. You know, I think they really don't. I think most football coaches don't feel we bring a whole lot to athletic ability, to performance enhancement. I think they think that, oh, we are recruiting genetics. That's all we need. We just need a guy to come in and yell and scream and be more like a prison warden, make sure that they're doing what they need to be doing. But the training is really, it's a non-factor to them. But at our level, at a group of 5, we don't get 5-star. We don't get 4-star. If we're lucky, we'll get 1.
Who did you guys beat? Last year was a very big team.
We beat Miami. We beat Miami in the bowl game. And, you know, and so we have to develop our guys.
Right.
We have to truly, you're getting a 0-star or a 3-star or a 2-star. And so, and we have developed, you know, a lot of guys for the NFL that came here with no, you know, not thinking they were ever going to make it that far because they weren't even a rated athlete. So, and we've won. So, you know, so longevity, I've made or not made moves because I would look, if someone wanted to hire me at a different university, I would look at, you know, their team, you know, how many seniors, what kind of talent they had, how close were they to being fired, which I had two universities that wanted me to come. And I knew that if they didn't win that year, that whole staff would be fired. And I didn't take the job, and both staffs got fired. So it's just kind of picking and choosing and to what's the right place. A lot of guys will leave just because it's a bigger job, but not look at, I may be fired in 7 months, 8 months.
Right.
You know,
and you're a family man. You just, you know, I don't know how many kids you have, but I knew you were married. So
yeah, I have 3 kids, two still in college. So, you know, it's, you know, you have to be smart, but at the same time, you know, you have to put a product together. And it, you know, I think the product that we put here with the staffs plural that I've had, we've done a great job. You know, and the players believe in what we do. It's just tough. I mean, a lot of guys, you know, will get fired in their 30s and they can't get another job. You know, they were hired by, you know, say you were hired by Georgia, and then that coach gets fired. You know, it's not how good you are; it's who you know. It's tough. Period. It's who you know. So it's making more connections with sport coaches than strength coaches. You know, unless you want to go and become somebody else's assistant. But, you know, most strength coaches are too insecure to hire somebody who's already been a head guy, because they're too insecure that guy might know more than them. And I'm the opposite. You know, I want, if I could hire 5 former head guys and they're good, I'm doing it, you know, but they're too insecure. You know, oh, he might look better than me, and, you know, he might try and take my job. And like, I would leave. I've already told a bunch of Power 5 schools that, look, you want me to be an assistant? I'll be the best assistant you've ever seen. I said, if you're going to pay me the same amount of money that I make as a head guy with all the responsibilities and headaches that I have, with zero budget and 0 coaching staff, I said, I'll come and make the same amount in the SEC, you know, and you know, and I'll help you win. You know, I've told coaches that, but I think most of them, I would be hell yeah if I'm the head coach. But they're, you know, like I say, I think it's our field is been built on insecurities of humans.
Yeah. You're in your book, you're pretty outspoken with some really important life and career information, you know, things I could tell like that you've been through a lot, because you talk about how things can be brought up against you, how you should be really tracking a lot of information. And I was really impressed by it. I think young coaches also should be reading it because of that career information in there. What was the inspiration behind you saying, you know what, I got to write a book?
You know, I'm big on skill acquisition. So, you know, developing training systems by position in football. and like doing a lot of martial arts with D line and O linemen,
Yeah.
like doing
There's
a lot of
videos of you out. I don't know if the videos were from when you did that at Sornex, but there's videos out.
Sornex, and I did some stuff just on Instagram and
Yeah.
out on the field and stuff,
Yep.
and just doing a lot of vision and cognition work with our receivers and DBs and quarterbacks. And there's a lot of things that you can do out that people don't think is in the realm of being a strength coach. But if we're performance enhancers and working martial arts skills in the same system that they're going to play in, working with vision and cognition would change a direction in the systems that they play in. I said it makes them a better football player.
We're a performance coach.
We're performance enhancers. We're supposed to enhance their performance. So it's not just about power cleaning and squatting. It's about developing an entire athlete. Even though the base of what we do is what I think is too much in the weight room to a certain extent, because the body's you have to move, and there's so many strength coaches and young strength coaches who grew up loving to lift, and so they're good in the weight room. You put them outside and have them do anything, any kind of warm up, anything that's athletic, and they're so stiff and they can't move. And at 57, I can still run. I can still do any drill. I can, I spend more time, even though I still train 6 days a week, pretty much.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of my time in movement outside. I think that's another reason why I still move well at my age and will always move well at my age.
Have you had any surgeries, Kurt?
I've had shoulder surgery. I've torn my ACL in one knee, torn PCL in another knee, a labrum in my right shoulder. I've had arthritis where they, scraped a lot of bone from my clavicle and my shoulder.
Did you get your knees fixed? Because some guys.
No, I just started training again. I just said, fuck it, man. I'm not going through all the surgery. I'll just start squatting again.
Yeah,
I start training again.
I would, my knee has been real bad. I've got a torn meniscus and a non-functioning ACL. And I'm like, how the fuck does that happen? I squat, I lunge, I step, it's just sometimes.
Yeah. I never had the ACL repaired.
Yeah.
But I still can do, I can still play flag. I can still play flag football, basketball, do everything.
Yeah. That's the thing with injuries. Some people can do it. Some people, I got to get my damn knee fixed, unfortunately. What closing thoughts would you had? Any questions you feel you wish I would have asked you? And of course, I really want people to pick up your book. I remember, I'm telling you, Kurt, when I bought it, the title Rants of a Strength and Conditioning Madman, it's really, you do have some rants in there, but it's really such an insight into life and career and being a professional that when I was reading it, I always say, like, a great book, how do I know it's great? Because then I'm like always a little depressed when it's over. So when I finished, I was like, fuck, I wanted more.
When I started writing, I was really started sketching out like a by position skill acquisition book, but then I would get up in the morning and just free write, just whatever thoughts were coming. But I would I would write something, it would turn into like a rant, like that I was ranting about. And it was like, not even some of the stuff I was just free writing had nothing to do with skill acquisition.
Yeah.
And then Ryan Grubbs, who's a street coach with Liberty now, was my assistant. And he was like, you say some funny stuff right before we go into why we're going to do what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And so he would go, like, I would say something, I'd say crazy stuff off the wall to the players. He'd go, write that down. And so he'd walk over to the board, write it down, or I'd write it down. And he actually convinced me when I was editing the book, I was going to take a lot out of the way I talk, because that's how I talk. Yep. How I write is exactly how I speak. And he goes, you can't do that. This book is beyond genuine. And I'm glad I listened to him, because I almost didn't, because I had another former alumni of TAC who was a writer at one time. He said, oh, Kurt, you got to take the language out. You got to take this out and take that out. And he almost convinced me to take a lot of stuff out. And then Ryan was like, Coach, don't do it. He goes, people what's going to be great about this book, people either going to really, really love it.
Yeah.
Because you're so honest and you put it out there, or they're really going to hate it because they're embarrassed they see something that they've done and you call it out and they're embarrassed about it. And the thing is, I in the book, I put just as many of my mistakes.
Yes, you do.
I mean,
Yeah.
I put all my mistakes out there. And
Right.
so it's not like one of those holier than thou books, because it's like, here's all the dumbass stuff that I've done.
Very transparent book.
Yeah.
I also like, you call out the strength coaches, you call them douche donkeys that just, they make us look like crap. But then you say, hey, I used to do that too, but now everybody sees it.
Well, I'm still very aggressive, and I'm still have that violent nature.
Me too.
I just don't put it on video. I just shut the doors. I still am that guy, but but I don't put it out for other people to see. Whereas now it's like, everything is, look at me. I'm the social media darling, and that kind of stuff that's why football coaches think that's what we do. And that's why very talented coaches get out of it, because they're so tired of, you didn't hire me to stand on the sidelines and do jumping jacks, and wave towels, and
it's stupid.
So
it's actually embarrassing.
It is.
I got a master's degree for that.
I've coached for 30 years, and that's what, you can hire any clown to do that. And, and I don't know how I came up with douche donkey. One day I was just on Twitter. I just put, I didn't want to put douchebag, and I actually saw a boxer. His name was Swamp Donkey, and so I just kind of put it together, douche donkey, and kind of double D. It rhymed. It was pretty good, So, I think that the book is 100% for charity for St. Jude's Children's Hospital and the Navy SEALs Foundation. They both helped out our program in some way over the years, and I felt like I owed it to them when I was writing. Like when I was writing the book, and I really thought too that our administration couldn't fire me if it was a book for charity, no matter what I put in it.
That's great.
So I had a little bit of an ulterior motive, but I was just like, okay, I got to put this out there. But okay, if I give it, you got to be a real asshole to fire somebody for writing a book for charity. For those, especially for children. So you hate sick children and you hate America. So that's what you're telling me when you fire me. So, and it's done. It's done well. I think up to date, it's probably raised 10,000 maybe.
Yeah.
So it's raised
and I think it's going to have a serious impact for people on just, if you're a coach, it's an important read for you.
Yeah.
What's next for you, Kurt? You're 57. I don't know. We have a mutual friend, Evan, who did an intro for your book, Evan Marcus. Yes. Evan's a little younger than you. And, that's not the thing. My mentor, Coach Ethan Reeve, was at Wake Forest. Yeah. They let him go after 19 years. Now he's back at University of Tennessee. He said, he's like, I'm back on the floor. I take the football guys through the calisthenics, then the other guys run it. So, sometimes I say to myself, like, when I seen what's happening with the programs being cut, I'm like, man, it's just kind of disheartening, because it's, even my wife sometimes says to me, she's like, look, you got a master's degree. A guy interviewed me yesterday. He's like, how do you work so much? He's like, how the hell do you do that? He's like, you're like twice my age, and you're, and sometimes I say, I'm sure you've thought it, is this healthy? We're so hyped up, and it's,
I mean, I want to be the oldest living strength coach to stay in either the college or the pro level, and just see how far, I want to see how far I can go. The only other thing I could really do and be good at would be like a hunting guide, like in Alaska or something. It'd be the only other thing I would be really good at.
Where have you gone hunting in Alaska or no?
No, that's like one of my bugs. I want to bow hunt a bear. I want to go a Kodiak bear. I want to, so that's like one of my things I'm going to do. So it's me against a bear, and, so I love to compete. I know what I bring to the lives of these guys. And I think more, my kids are almost out of college. And so I don't have young kids. So it's almost like my second career, because it was really hard when my kids were young.
Why was it hard? What was the hardest thing?
Well, just the amount as a strength coach, the amount of hours you're away, the time, it's so time consuming, trying to have family time and see your kids play sports. And it was rough. It was tough. It was like really, really tough. And my kids, like when I was at LSU, they were young, and my oldest daughter, she can remember going to the game, loved going to the games. And, but then my other two, they didn't see that. They didn't get to go to LSU football games and baseball games. And so, then I went into private sec for so long, for 18 years almost, and then came back.
Okay. I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah. And then came back, and they were like, you ought to go back and coach in college. That was so much fun. It was like, my younger kids were like, yeah, that'd be awesome, Dad, go back and coach in college. And so, they were in high school at the time and in college. So I came back. And
how old were you when you went back, Kurt?
Oh man.
40s, right? Or 30s?
Well, 49.
Dude, it's interesting because I'm 45 in a couple weeks. I don't feel it.
Yeah.
I'm really feel like I am out working and out energizing. And even technically, I have a lot to learn, but I feel like I'm constantly better. And I'm like, I almost sometimes wonder, I'm like, is this college gig just for if you're in your 20s?
No. And from that point you just said, I don't think I'm very good at what I do. And I'm always,
you're trying to get better.
Well, I feel like there's so many things to learn. There's so much out there, from neuroscience to cognition to, rehab aspects of rehabbing athletes and getting them, to not necessarily rehabbing, but doing a lot of functional type work so they don't get injured. And there's just so much out there that we haven't even gotten into, especially with the brain in training, that we're not even close to knowing everything we need to know in those respects. And so I don't feel like I even peaked yet. I'm not even close to peaking. And I think that's another thing that drives me, besides just, that no one's lasting as old as, when I go to a clinic, if they say, okay, if you're 24 to 28, stand up, and then 29, and then all of a sudden they get into the late 50s and like, there's nobody standing up. Yeah. So,
what clinics have you, do you go to NSCA, or are you CSCCA? Where do you go?
I'm not a CCA. I am not a Chuck Stiggins fan at all with the CSCCA.
Yeah.
So it's, I'll speak at like NSCA. I'll go to their clinics. I like the Track and Field Consortium, going and speaking at their clinics. I love Summer Strong, because with Summer Strong, you get all these, arrogant street coaches that walk around like they're badasses, staring at everybody like, we're from Michigan, or we're from West Virginia, or whatever Power 5 school, but they can't do it at Soreness because you have all these military guys who have like gone through hell, hand-to-hand combat, most kills hand-to-hand, like 38 kills. And so you can't walk around and act like a badass.
That's right.
When you got all these guys in a room that could kill you with their bare hands.
I know.
So it brings all those guys down and it makes them like act like reasonable humans and not like douche donkeys and walk around with these.
Do you think you're going to make Summer Strong this year?
I don't know. I mean, it's tricky. It depends on where we're at by then.
I know.
I'm hoping that Memorial Day is the turning point.
Yeah.
Down south is more, chill than where I am. Things are getting shut down a lot here.
Yeah, we don't care.
I know.
We got that survival of the fittest. Let's roll.
I know. Well, that's where we should be, I believe that's what we should be doing. So, this was Kurt, man. This has been great. I can't wait to just do this in person and share a few beers and.
Yeah. All right. I got last question for you.
Oh yeah.
Where did we meet?
I don't know if we met. I was thinking that. I was like, I don't think we.
Yeah,
I don't think we met in. Wait. All right, chill out for a second. Wait. No. There's a possibility we met at Sornick Summer Strong, or
we both spoke in Atlanta.
At the Georgia Tech.
At Georgia Tech.
Yes.
We didn't talk at all that whole week, but me, you, and the Wisconsin coach jumped in a car to go to the airport.
That's right.
Dude, that to me was such a that was a special day for me. I had spoken at I'd spoken at Lehigh, I had spoken at some events, but to be at Georgia Tech, to be down south, I had never done that. And I was actually sick. So I had some sort of like stomach bug. And I was like, man, I never cancel. I was like, I think I have to cancel, guys. Like I'm sitting on the toilet, I'm throwing up. So they're like, how about this? What if we cancel your flight Friday? You catch a flight Saturday. So Saturday morning, I hit like a 6:10 a.m. flight. So I was up at like 2 a.m. The flight into
no, I remember that. I remember you telling me that. I remember you telling us that. Like, oh
flight, man. My wife, I don't do too, I get sick. So she's like, I didn't want to tell you, but Atlanta's a rough, airport to fly into because of the storms. I'm like, yeah, dude, it was like the fucking Jedi simulator. You should have told me. It was like, and then on the way back. So I flew there, spoke, and I flew back. And I remember the people were so respectful. I specifically remember a middle school principal. He was 38 and he was like calling me sir. And I think we were about the same age, but he was so respectful. I had a great time. I don't think I got to see you speak. I was there in the morning. I spoke. Somebody, what's his name? Big Zach went after me. Yeah. And then I was back in a truck heading to the airport.
Yeah. I don't know if I spoke earlier that morning or I was like the last one. And then I remember just running, grabbing my stuff and jumping in the car.
Leaving.
And taking it and leaving.
We didn't really have time. I sat down with a dad and his son to eat lunch that day. They brought in lunch from like Panera or something. But so was that a hammer clinic we spoke at?
It was it was a hammer clinic.
I've enjoyed those. I've spoken at a few hammer clinics. Lehigh, they had me at Kane, and they're all a blur, but that has been good people. I like those people. Yeah, man, we didn't really get to hang out. It's a shame, dude. So listen, man, this Kurt has been awesome. People could pick up your book on Amazon, right?
Yep.
That's right. That's where I picked it up from. What about if somebody wants to reach out to you to get you to speak at a conference or consulting? What about any of that stuff?
They just email me at khester@latech.edu and, get in touch with me that way. And, I try to help as many people as I can.
Excellent.
Try to give back a little bit. Appreciate it, brother.
Hang tight. I'm just going to shut this down. Everybody listening, big thanks. Do the normal things, leave a 5-star review, share with a friend. That's it, guys. Kurt, hang tight, my man. I'm just going to shut it down. Hold on a second. Oh, here we go.